You call this transparency, Mr. Secretary? This is nothing short of a slush fund, a backroom deal orchestrated to line pockets while American families struggle. Representative Jasmine Crockett's voice, sharp as a whip, echoed through the cavernous hearing room. The gavel pounded, but the tension was already too thick to be silenced. Suddenly, a colossal screen flickered to life, showing a familiar silhouette. The room hushed, then erupted. A game of political chess had just begun, and the opening move was a checkmate no one saw coming. The air in the congressional hearing room crackled with an almost palpable anticipation. Every seat was filled, cameras whirred, and the hushed murmurs of reporters blended with the creak of old wooden benches. Today was the day. Everyone sensed it. That Representative Jasmine Crockett, with her reputation for cutting rhetoric and relentless pursuit of perceived injustice, was going to land a significant blow. Her target, a new, vaguely defined foreign policy initiative championed by the current administration, an initiative she had publicly labeled a boondoggle and a, quote, for corruption. Seated before the committee was a high-ranking administration official, Secretary Robert Maxwell, a man known more for his quiet competence than his oratorical flair. He shifted uneasily as the Klieg lights bore down. He had been through hours of testimony, parrying questions about budgets, expenditures, and foreign engagements, all while bound by the constraints of national security protocols that prevented him from revealing the full scope of the program. Secretary Maxwell, Crockett began, her voice a low, theatrical purr that belied the venom in her words. She leaned into the microphone, her eyes fixed on him like a predator. Let's talk about the Stabilization Through Innovation initiative. A noble name, I'm sure, but when we examine the financials, Secretary, we see what appear to be, shall we say, creative accounting practices. She paused, allowing her words to hang in the air, then picked up a large, glossy chart. It displayed a labyrinthine flow of funds, with significant sums seemingly disappearing into vague logistical support and strategic partnerships. She pointed a manicured finger at a particularly large allocation. This sum, Mr. Secretary, $300 million earmarked for, quote, community resilience in a volatile region. Yet, our intelligence suggests that region is sexiless stable, not more, since these funds were supposedly deployed. Can you explain this discrepancy, or perhaps this outright waste? Maxwell cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping across the committee members, many of whom wore expressions ranging from grim concern to open suspicion. Madam Chair, Congresswoman Crockett, the Stabilization Through Innovation initiative is a complex, multifaceted program. Its objectives are long-term, and some of the immediate impacts may not be evident to the public due to the sensitive nature of operations. The funds are being utilized precisely as intended for... Crockett cut him off with a dismissive wave of her hand. Intended for what exactly? For private contractors with no public accountability? For phantom projects that exist only on paper? We have whistleblowers, Secretary, genuine patriots, who tell a very different story. She slammed a document down on the table, though its contents remained unseen by the cameras. They speak of shell companies, exorbitant consulting fees, and a complete lack of measurable outcomes. The American people deserve answers, not bureaucratic obfuscation. Her voice rose, infusing the room with a sense of righteous indignation. She knew how to play to the cameras, how to craft a narrative. The narrative today was simple: incompetence, corruption, and a president who was either oblivious or complicit. Maxwell's face tightened. He wanted to speak, to explain, to cut through the malicious insinuation, but his hands were tied. He could hint, he could imply, but he could not reveal classified intelligence in an open hearing, especially not with Crockett twisting every word. Congresswoman, I assure you, every dollar is accounted for. The program is designed to operate with a degree of discretion to protect those on the ground and the sensitive nature of the information being gathered. Discretion? Or deceit? Crockett retorted, her voice dripping with scorn. This isn't discretion, Secretary. This is deliberate opacity designed to hide failure or worse, fraud. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a theatrical whisper. The American people are tired of their tax dollars being squandered on vague initiatives. that yield nothing but more instability and more questions. We demand accountability, Mr. Secretary. The room buzzed. Reporters were furiously typing. Live commentators were reacting with grave faces. Crockett had him on the ropes, or so it seemed. Maxwell's inability to provide concrete details due to security classifications played directly into her hands, making him appear evasive. Suddenly, a voice, calm but authoritative, cut through the noise from the back of the room. "Excuse me, Madam Chair. We have an urgent communication from the White House." Crockett frowned, momentarily thrown off her stride. "An urgent communication? During an active hearing? Is this an attempt to obstruct these proceedings?" "No, Congresswoman," the aide replied, his face serious. "It's a live video feed. The President wishes to address the committee directly regarding this matter." A collective gasp swept through the room. President Trump? Appearing unannounced? Crockett's eyes widened. A flicker of surprise. Then a sardonic smile played on her lips. "Well, isn't this convenient?" She scoffed, though a hint of unease crept into her tone. "All right, put 'em on. Let's see what transparent explanations the President has to offer." The enormous screen at the front of the hearing room, previously displaying Crockett's damning charts, flickered and then burst to life. There stood President Donald Trump, not in the Oval Office, but in what appeared to be a secure operations room setting. He looked directly into the camera, his expression serious, his usual bombast replaced by a calm, resolute demeanor. "Good afternoon, Madam Chair, distinguished members of this committee, and to the American people watching," President Trump began, his voice clear and resonant, filling the room. "I understand there are questions, valid questions, being raised about the Stabilization Through Innovation initiative, and I appreciate Representative Crockett's passion for oversight, even if her conclusions are, shall we say, a bit premature." Crockett bristled, but Trump continued, his gaze unwavering. "Secretary Maxwell is a fine patriot, and he is bound by a sacred oath to protect highly sensitive intelligence. An oath, it appears, that some in this room are eager to have him violate for political theater." A murmur rippled through the room. Crockett leaned forward, ready to interrupt, but Trump raised a hand, a subtle gesture that commanded attention. "However," he continued, "the American people deserve the truth, and today they will get it. What Representative Crockett and her team have mistakenly identified as, quote, budgetary irregularities and phantom projects are, in fact, the precisely executed, covert operations of one of the most successful economic aid and counter-influence programs in modern history." He gestured, and the screen beside him changed. It wasn't a flowchart of disappearing money, but a meticulously organized presentation. The $300 million allocated for community resilience that Congresswoman Crockett questioned, Trump said, his voice now laced with a controlled intensity, was channeled through a network of non-governmental organizations and local community leaders, all vetted and secured to prevent diversion by hostile actors. He then revealed a series of astonishing before and after images. Flourishing agricultural cooperatives in areas once blighted by war. Small businesses, powered by solar grids, bringing economic life to isolated villages. Refugee camps, once overflowing, now seeing voluntary returns as stability took root. These aren't phantom projects, Congresswoman. These are schools being rebuilt, wells being dug, entrepreneurs being funded. These are the tangible results of American ingenuity and strategic investment, saving lives and building stability where chaos once reigned. Crockett's face, which had been set in a triumphant smirk, slowly began to pale. She stammered, But the intelligence reports suggest—" "The publicly available intelligence reports, Congresswoman," Trump interjected smoothly, "which are, by design, often several steps behind real-time classified operations. What you saw as discrepancy, we saw as critical operational security. What you called waste was investment that has already yielded extraordinary returns." He continued, his voice gaining momentum. "This program, designed in secret, launched with precision, has done more than just stabilize a volatile region. It has quietly dismantled terror networks by offering viable economic alternatives. It has fostered alliances with local populations who now see America not as an intervener, but as a genuine partner in prosperity. And most importantly, Congresswoman, his gaze hardened as he looked directly at the camera, implying he was looking directly at Crockett. It has created and secured over 7,000 new jobs right here in America, through contracts for materials, training, and logistical support. Jobs that would have gone overseas had we taken the, quote, transparent route and announced our every move to the world, including our adversaries. He then displayed financial reports, not of vague expenditures, but of asterisk revenue streams generated by the program for American companies involved in its implementation. He showed testimonials from foreign dignitaries, recorded in secure locations, praising the discreet yet transformative impact of American aid. The cherry-picked data Crockett had presented was revealed to be tiny fragments of a much larger, overwhelmingly positive mosaic. Crockett leaped to her feet, her composure shattered. "This is a preemptive strike, a cover-up. You can't just drop this on us without verification." She shrieked, her voice high-pitched and desperate. "This is a violation of due process." Trump's expression remained calm, almost pitying. "Congresswoman, the verification is happening before your very eyes. The due process you speak of would have revealed these critical operations to those who seek to undermine them, jeopardizing lives and national security. My administration chose to prioritize results and safety over political points." He paused, then delivered the final, devastating blow. "Your whistleblowers, Congresswoman," Trump said, his voice dropping slightly, "were likely fed incomplete information, or perhaps were unwitting participants in a malicious attempt to derail a successful operation for partisan gain. Your rushed investigation, fueled by a biased agenda, overlooked the very real benefits, the very real stability, and the very real American jobs that this initiative has secured. It seems your pursuit of scandal blinded you to the success." The room was silent, save for the frantic clicking of cameras and the stunned whispers. Crockett's face was a mask of disbelief and fury. Her meticulously constructed narrative had not just collapsed, it had been utterly vaporized. The exposure she had planned, the moral high ground she had claimed, had dissolved into a public demonstration of her own misjudgment and, arguably, her malice. The chairman of the committee, initially hesitant, now spoke, his voice tinged with grudging respect. "Mr. President, this information is certainly eye-opening. We will, of course, need time to independently verify." "You will," Trump affirmed, a faint, confident smile touching his lips. "And when you do, you will find it all to be exactly as presented, because unlike some, my administration deals in facts, not fabrications." With that, the screen flickered, and President Trump's image vanished, leaving only the stunned faces of the committee, the gaping mouths of the reporters, and a visibly shaken Representative Crockett, whose public embarrassment was now complete. News channels immediately scrambled, their breaking news segments pivoting from Trump administration scandal to President Trump's stunning hearing revelation. The public, initially swayed by Crockett's dramatic accusations, now saw a different picture, one of strategic genius and quiet success. The hearing, intended as a political crucifixion, had instead become a resounding triumph for the president and a catastrophic miscalculation for his antagonist. Crockett, defeated and humiliated, left the room, her once sharp voice silenced by the undeniable truth. The swift reversal in that hearing was truly something to behold. What do you think was the most critical piece of evidence or rhetoric that turned the tide so dramatically? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more captivating stories where truth always finds a way to shine.